the September AB 617 Portside Community Steering Committee meeting. Esta es la reunión de septiembre del Comité Directivo de la Comunidad Portside. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Gracias a todos por reunirse con nosotros. At this moment, I will pass the mic over to Vicky, one of our fabulous interpreters, who will give instructions on how to access interpretation for the meeting.
Okay. Buenas tardes a todos y gracias por unirse con nosotros. Vamos a explicar las funciones necesarias para acceder a la interpretación simultánea al español. Si están utilizando su computadora portátil o computadora de escritorio, favor de localizar el icono con figura de globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla cuando este aparezca en un minuto y luego pulsen en interpretación de lenguaje, Language Interpretation. Ahí seleccionen el idioma el español. Si están conectándose desde su teléfono, iPad, o dispositivo similar, busquen el menú con los tres puntitos en la esquina superior del lado derecho de su pantalla y pulsen interpretación de lenguaje, Language Interpretation, y luego el español. Esto permite que escuchen la traducción al español con un 80% de volumen y el audio en inglés se escuchará al fondo con un 20% de volumen. Tienen la opción de apagar el audio en inglés pulsando Mute Original Audio, ubicado en el mismo menú donde eligieron el idioma español. Gracias. For those of you who do speak English, we would still like you to go to that globe at the bottom of your screen and choose language interpretation. Choose English. This will allow you, if there is something spoken in Spanish that needs to be interpreted into English, you'll be able to hear it. If you're on the main English, you won't hear it. If you have your phone, a smartphone, or an iPad, you're going to look for the three dots on the top right and also click there for language interpretation and then also choose English. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you very much, Vicky, for those instructions. Can folks confirm on the Spanish channel that the language interpretation is working?
Sí, se escucha bien.
Gracias, Alicia. Moving along. Thank you again for everyone who was able to join us this evening. This is the September AB 617 Portside Community Steering Committee meeting. We have a packed agenda today, so we'll be doing our best to stay on time while also giving plenty of time for discussion amongst committee members and folks from the public. Moving on to the next slide. So for today's meeting, we'll continue a discussion from last month around where and how to hold future Portside Community Steering Committee meetings. Following that, we'll receive two updates from the San Diego Air Pollution Control District, one on the Portside Community Air Monitoring data, and the second on the annual progress report on the Community Emissions Reduction Plan. Following that, we'll have a presentation from the folks at the Port of San Diego who will be giving information on a request for information around truck charging infrastructure. So for today's agenda, after roll call and general updates from partner agencies, we'll be opening it up to the steering committee to approve last month's meeting notes and tonight's agenda. Following that, we'll have a facilitated discussion and some polling around meeting logistics for future meetings. And following that, we'll have the presentations on the community air monitoring data and annual SERP progress report from the Air District. And we'll close out with the last presentation from the Port of San Diego around truck charging infrastructure. Following that, we'll have public comments and announcements from folks on funding opportunities as well as events happening in the community. And after that, we'll close out the meeting with some remarks. And just as a friendly reminder to folks, some meeting agreements that we try to hold through our facilitation is reminding folks to create space for everyone to contribute. If you found yourself contributing a lot, feel free to step back to give space for other folks to provide public comment. We also remind folks to please speak one person at a time. We'll do our best to ask folks to raise their hand and follow a cue. We ask folks to please listen to each other and respect each other's opinions, knowledge, and perspectives. As facilitators, we'll do our best to be conscious of time and get the meeting at a close by 7 p.m. And lastly, we ask folks to please speak slowly and clearly for our interpreters to provide interpretation in Spanish or English. Now I'd like to start a quick roll call for our attendance. So to get us started, is Keith Corey from the City of San Diego here?
Yes, I am. Sorry about the delay.
No problem. Thanks, Keith. Jack Munger from IEA.
Here, good evening.
Good evening. Is Massey Hatch here as well?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Hi, Massey. Sarah Joby.
I'm here. Good evening.
Good evening. Is Lydia here? Not seeing Lydia. Commissioner Sandy Naranjo.
Present.
Thanks, Sandy. Is Phil Gibbons here? Not seeing Phil. Tim Garrett is not here, but Mariela Rodriguez.
I'm here.
Mariela. Joy Williams.
Good evening. I'm here.
Hey, Joy. Is Nick Paul here?
Good evening. Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Nick. Martin Reeder, National City. Not seeing Martin. Is David Welch here?
I'm here, and then Martin is off today.
Okay, thank you, David. Roman Partida Lopez.
Hey, I'm here.
Hi, Roman. Dr. Yoon let us know she won't be able to join today. Is Dr. Diaz here? Not seeing Dr. Diaz. Diane Vermeulen from
I'm
Health.
here.
Hi, Diane. Samantha Liu from U.S. Navy.
Good evening. Present.
Samantha. Is Helen Haas here?
Yes. Hi, Joy.
Hi, Helen. Is Dinah Willier here?
I'm here. Good evening.
Good evening. And Filomena Marino.
Present.
Filomena, thanks for joining us. Janice Luna Reynoso. Is she here? I think Janice. John Alvarado. Not seeing John. Hillary Medina. Not seeing Hillary. Alicia Sanchez.
Presente.
Alicia. Margarita Moreno.
Hola, Choy.
Aquí presente.
Margarita. Naomi Sanchez. Not seeing Naomi. Vanessa Contreras. Not seeing Vanessa. Salvador Raza Abrica.
Present.
So thanks for joining us. Montserrat Hernandez.
Presente.
Montserrat. Sylvia Calzada.
Present.
Hey, Sylvia. And Ashley Valentin let us know she'll be 20 minutes late today.
I'm present.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
Josephine Talamantes. That's Josephine. And Maritza Contreras.
Here.
Maritza. Thanks, everybody. And folks in the public, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. And that's more than welcome always. Moving along to general updates, I want to hand over the mic to Mariela at Sandag.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for having me. Today is my first meeting, so I'm very excited to hear everything that goes on in the group. I have a brief announcement from Sandag. I know in the past, my predecessor had the idea of putting a item on the agenda. So I wanted to gauge the interest for future agenda item. So broadband infrastructure, such as fiber and wireless communications, support access to high-speed internet services to enable telework, telehealth, and online education, all of which have the potential to reduce vehicle miles travel and traffic congestion. Broadband infrastructure is also necessary to deploy the ITS infrastructure such as like the ones that we are proposing in Harbor Drive project, and as well as access to share online demand mobility services. So Sandag adopted a regional digital equity strategy and action plan to expand widespread access to a reliable internet connections. And I would like to know if there's any interest from the Portside Community Steering Committee for a detailed presentation of what Sandag is working on and how that could benefit the community members. If there is any interest, I can pass that message along to the people in charge of setting this action plan forward, and they can provide like a 10-15 minute presentation tailored to the Portside community.
Thank you, Mariela. Commissioner Aranjo.
Thank you, Chewy. Question for Mariela. I think that would be great to present to us. Also, I would like to add, if you guys would be willing to present what the removal of the road use surcharge on the RTP and the impacts it would have on the efforts we're doing the AB 617 CERT. That would be great.
I can definitely bring that back to the appropriate people at Sandag and report back to the group.
Thank you, Mariela.
Sure, thank you.
Great. Any other comments from Mariela at Sandag? Joy?
Hi, Mariela. Yes, that does sound interesting to hear about. I guess I'm wondering how far along is it, and are there ways that you'd be looking to this group to help support that, or ways that people can participate?
So to be quite honest, I'm not completely embedded into this particular team that is developing this plan and this program, but I can definitely bring back all these questions to them, and I can send an email to Chewy or whoever is in charge of broadcasting any further information to the group. And we can figure out a time maybe for them to come and present.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mariela. Any other comments on Sandag's potential presentation on broadband infrastructure? Hearing none. Okay, Mariela, if you can send me more information and I can send it to the group.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Moving along, the Port of San Diego has an update. And then you can go to previous slide.
And Drew, I believe am I the only port representative here?
Yes.
Okay, so one update I do want to share, a general update, is about the National City balance plan. So for those of you that are not aware what the National City balance plan, so the National City balance plan has been what we've been working on. The community, the city, the port, and stakeholders have been working for discussing for over 16 years. And what it does is reconfiguration of land uses to optimize recreational, maritime, and commercial uses. And very exciting update is that we will be approving the EIR of the National City Balance Plan at our Board of Port Commissioners meeting on Tuesday, October 11. And so this will signify all the hard work we've been doing this plan, finally working on land uses that actually make sense in our Portside community and National City. And so encouraging everyone to come to our meeting to support on Tuesday, October 11. And if you guys have any questions, I will put my email and contact information on the chat. So happy to have one-on-ones with anyone interested.
Thank you, Commissioner. And yeah, feel free to send me that info as well, so I can share with the group. Melina?
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to announce that next week we'll be having a fireside chat with Supervisor Nora Vargas, our chair, Paula Forbes, EHC's Diane Tagorian, and Casa Familiar's CEO as well. And lastly, Sunny Naranjo will also be there as well as part of Clean Air Day. I'll go ahead and send over the flyer to Chuy so that he can pass that on to you. Hopefully all of you can attend. We are planning on having it at the Logan Heights Library next week on October 5th at 5:30. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Melina. I believe that concludes our agency updates. Moving along to the next slide. We wanted to give folks a heads up that we plan to move the November Portside Community Steering Committee meeting up a week to November 15th to accommodate for the Thanksgiving holiday week. We also wanted to let folks know that we won't plan on having a meeting in December to accommodate the winter holidays, and we'll be sending out an email update to the group. So please mark these dates on your calendar. Moving along, I wanted to open it up to the steering committee for approval of last month's meeting notes and tonight's agenda.
Chewy, this is Commissioner Naranjo, and I motion to approve the minutes.
This is Maritza, I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Naranjo and Maritza. Is there anyone opposed to the motion of approving the meeting minutes and tonight's agenda? Hearing none, so the meeting notes and agenda are approved. Thank you. Great. And now we'll move along with our discussion on meeting logistics for the Portside Community Steering Committee. moving along. So I wanted to give folks a quick context and background on how meetings have been run historically for this committee. So for folks that remember, the Portside Steering Committee meeting launched in October of 2018, which was over 3 years ago. And a year after that, the facilitation team, which included myself and Daniela, joined you all at Perkins Elementary. And at that time, meetings were being held in person at Perkins Elementary from 6 to 8 p.m. the third Tuesday of the month. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we did go virtual in April 2020 and have remained virtual ever since, with some modifications to the date and time of meetings. The most recent ones being last October, moving the meeting times up to 5 p.m. so folks can get off of Zoom meetings a little earlier in the evening. And we also had moved the meetings to the fourth Tuesday of the month to accommodate the National City Council meetings. Moving along, we had a discussion, a really healthy discussion last month at this meeting, discussing ways and exploring whether we should go back in person or think through how we can maximize and be more engaged with the community in Portside. So folks had brought up issues with virtual meetings potentially impacting community members' ability to join, especially for folks that don't have internet at home. We discussed the possibility of switching to in-person meetings or alternating between virtual and in-person to increase public participation. And lastly, folks had brought up other potential barriers to participation, including complex terminology used in some of the presentations, as well as the date and time of meetings. So we decided to create a couple of polls just to gauge where folks are feeling on in terms of meeting logistics. And following these polls, we'd love to open it up to discussion for steering committee members and members of the public to discuss what kind of options they'd like to see as things start to come more in person, and how we'd like to hold these meetings in the future. So before we get started on polling, are there any questions from folks? Hearing none. So Joanny, could you launch the first question? So folks should have a screen up. And Samantha, yeah, feel free to ask your question as polling goes. But the first question is up on what is your preferred meeting format moving forward? Sandy?
Julie, it says that hosts and panelists cannot vote. At least it says it on my screen.
Got it. Thank you for catching that.
Sorry, everyone. I thought I had just made that change. Give me 1 second. Okay, it should be working now.
Thank you. Is that working for folks?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So please answer the 3 questions on the screen. The first question being, what is your preferred meeting format moving forward? Virtual, no change. In person, which would be a location in Portside, or hybrid. The second question is if meetings are in person, what time would you like for them to start? 5 p.m., 5:30, or 6? And if the meetings are hybrid, which of the following options would you prefer? Quarterly in-person meetings and keep the rest virtual? All in-person meetings with a potential Zoom option for folks? Or other sorts of combinations which you can add to the Zoom chat? Jack?
Thanks, Chewy. I was just wondering, I say there's only 3 times offered, 5, 5:30, and 6. Was this based on some other feedback that we received, or were there other times considered? I mean, for example, that made it easier for community members to attend, like noontime, morning time? Why do we only have 3 time options here?
That's a great question, Jack. I don't think there was any major reason other than sticking, right now this assumes sticking to a Tuesday evening. But if you have suggestions on other dates and times, definitely encourage you all to put it in the chat, and we can also bring it up during discussion. Montserrat?
Sí, creo que inicialmente los horarios en la tarde se pusieron porque es mejor para personas también de la comunidad poder asistir por la tarde, ya que durante el día muchos trabajan o están pues con sus hijos, ¿verdad? Entonces era por eso la opción de hacer las juntas por la tarde.
Thank you, Montserrat. Yeah, Montserrat had shared they were initially scheduled in the evening to accommodate for folks who don't work in the evening in the community to join. So yeah, there's definitely some balancing to having to do with when and where to hold the meetings for sure. But yeah, this is just to start a conversation.
Well, that's the first real feedback I've heard with regard to why meeting. I've just never heard, particularly from community members' perspective, what is the best time to allow participation, given work schedules and family schedules and all that. I just had never heard I've never heard us discuss that. We've always started out with the evening meetings, and that's where we stayed. So if that's the case, if that really everybody feels that way, that's one thing I don't think we've spent any time really discussing that.
Thanks, Jack.
Sure.
We'll give it a few more seconds for folks to participate in the poll. Great, we'll end the poll and share the results. So for the first question, sounds like in-person meetings is the minority of the votes, but there is almost equal interest in keeping these meetings virtual, and the slightly more votes requesting for a hybrid meeting. And then in terms of meeting starts, which assumes Tuesday evenings, but definitely we should be considering other times. It sounds like 5 p.m. Is the preferred start time if it's a Tuesday. And then the last question, in terms of if meetings are hybrid, the majority of folks would like to see a schedule of potentially quarterly in-person meetings and the rest virtual. Thank you all so much. We'll stop sharing these results and open it up for discussion. So I know there's been a couple of items from Filomena on the chat. Filomena, would you like to share your comments?
Yes. I was just asking the question if it can be moved to a different Tuesday rather than the 4th. Personally, I am part of the community planning group and I attend the broader community planning group, which is held exactly Tuesdays at 6 p.m. on the 4th Tuesday of every month. So that's just one person. So if it stays this day, it's fine. And then I was just answering the question regarding, we used to have for residents, it was easier if it was in person in the evening because we work during the day. So it's very difficult to attend an in-person meeting during the day. But if we stay in virtual meetings, then there's more flexibility because it is virtual.
Thank you, Filomena, for your comments. And yes, it's definitely a challenge trying to find the right evening in the week, since yeah, we originally changed it because of National City Council meetings, but we certainly understand there are other important meetings happening as well. Any other comments from folks on any reactions to the polling results? And maybe any folks who want to explain why they voted a certain way on the poll? Sylvia?
Yes, I voted for the second option in regards to all in person with an options to that. Then I thought about it. I would want to change my choice to the first one, which is quarterly in person and the rest virtually. It makes more sense for any new quick meetings or necessary meetings that need to be taking place. Makes more sense to go Zoom and use our time wisely, I guess, if you want to say that. So I don't know who else needs, would like to share some of their points as well.
Thanks, Sylvia. And yes, we invite folks to share. Ashley?
I have a quick question. If we do have in-person meetings, will they be having free food for people that are attending the meeting? Because my parents, they come out of work around 5 p.m. So if they do want to attend a meeting, they're probably going to choose eating dinner at their home if the in-person meeting doesn't include any food.
Great question, Ashley. So we did provide snacks for those who remember for in-person meetings. Due to some county rules, we couldn't provide hot meals. So I wouldn't say it would be replacing a dinner meal, but there were refreshments and snacks given out. And that would certainly be the practice if we went in person again. Nick?
Yeah, so I have a question about the quarterly in-person meeting. Like if that's the route that we're leaning towards, like would there be like a simultaneous Zoom option? I mean, like if the objective is to get as many folks involved and participating as possible, I'd hate for folks that can't make it in person to those once a quarter in-person meetings not to be able to participate because of our decision today.
Thanks, Nick. That's a great question. And Melina, would you like to share a little bit more about how hybrid meetings could be possible?
Yeah, sure. So we do, for those of you, we do have something called an OWL. And basically what that is, it's this device and it's got a 360 camera. So any person that's speaking, we can definitely capture that person. So that is something that we are looking at, to possibly have a hybrid version. We're just working out a few of the technological logistics.
Hi, this is Domingo. I also just wanted to add quickly, one of the challenges too with the hybrid version of it is the translation piece, because you need to translate people who are live at the meeting, in person at the meeting, but also you need to translate for folks who might be connected via Zoom. So it's almost like you have to be running a couple of meetings simultaneously for translation purposes. So not saying that that cannot be done, but just sharing, some of the logistical challenges that are part of a hybrid meeting. So I would say that even though hybrid could be a possibility, the level of engagement from folks participating virtual in an in-person meeting would definitely not be, I don't think it would be the same, but it's something that we could try.
Thank you, Domingo and Melina. I hope that answers your question, Nick. I do want to raise a great question by Roman. And I certainly remember these conversations when we were in person. So historically, the in-person Portside meetings have only been at Perkins Elementary, to my knowledge, which is in Barrio Logan. But we were already having discussions on, before the pandemic happened, on having meetings in National City as well, which is also part of the Portside community. I'm definitely would turn into the Air District on whether that could be possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see why not. I think that makes complete sense to me. So we could certainly look at that and see if we go to in person, just alternating locations between City of San Diego and National City.
Great. Commissioner Naranjo?
Also too, I just recommend that for the National City location, speak to the city of National City for the use of their space, and also the port. We have the aquatic center for the Port of San Diego. So we should discuss these options and figure out like the logistics ahead of time, considering the hybrid and all that.
Definitely. Thank you, Commissioner Naranjo.
Thank you.
And gracias, Margarita. Margarita shared in the chat that she likes the idea of switching, alternating sites for in person.
The other thing that I also wanted to mention is that we don't have to commit to a particular approach. I think we can test things out and see. I mean, the main point is to really do what makes more sense for the community and gets us, more community engagement. So if it turns out that if we were to switch to in-person meetings and it turns out that we get less participation, we can always come back to virtual, or depending on how we alternate. We don't have to just limit ourselves to just that one option. This is a topic that we revisited with the committee as far as meeting times, etc. So we can always continue having this conversation to switch to whatever makes sense.
Domingo, this is Jack. I would totally agree with that.
Oh, and Jack, by the way, thank you for your comment on meeting times. Chewy, I think that it would also be helpful to do like another check on meeting times, depending on whether we go to in-person or virtual, because there's been some points raised about that, about potentially having more flexibility with times of meetings if the meetings stay virtual. So maybe once we decide on whether we will continue virtual or do hybrid virtual and then alternate with in-person meetings, or one meeting in person a quarter, whatever it is, then we can revisit the time of meeting and just open it up to more options, just to make sure that we're also capturing, the majority of the the preference of the majority.
Great. Thank you, Domingo and Jack. Yeah, it's definitely before we make any decisions, we definitely want to continue getting input from you all on dates and times. Anything else folks want to share on this item? Great. Thank you all so much. Yeah, we'll be logging all this information on both polling and discussion to continue to refine our strategy moving forward. But just so folks know, we'll continue having these meetings in virtual before making any decision. Great. And before I close this item, anything else Domingo or Melina from the Air District want to share?
Thank you,
Me
Trin.
gustaría hacer un comentario. Soy Alicia.
Sí, Alicia.
Mira, para mí, estoy escuchando toda la conversación y a mí me estaría perfecto que se alternaran en diferentes lugares. E igual el horario está perfecto. En 5 o 6 de la tarde para mí está correcto, no sé para otras personas. Esto sí en un futuro se haría para el próximo año, ¿verdad? Ya este año quedaría igual. Esa es mi pregunta.
Gracias, Alicia. And Domingo, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, thank you, Trin. Thank you, Alicia. I'm going to go to the Spanish channel just to address Alicia's comment directly in Spanish. Alicia, muchas gracias por su comentario. Para responder a su pregunta, sí, nuestro plan es continuar con el calendario como lo tenemos por el resto del año, que en realidad ya nada más serían 2 juntas más, la de octubre y noviembre, porque en diciembre no hay junta, pero estaríamos viendo, comenzando en enero, con el nuevo plan de juntas, ya sea alternando entre virtual y en persona o dependiendo de cuál sea la decisión final, pero en efecto sería hasta enero.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Alicia and Domingo. And for folks who weren't on the English channel, Domingo just answered Alicia's question that any changes to the meeting calendar will happen in the new calendar year in January, and we'll give folks plenty of notice on what that meeting schedule would look like. Great. Thank you all so much, and yeah, appreciate your input always on these sorts of matters. Moving along to our next agenda item, I'd like to turn it to the Air District, who will be giving an update on the Portside community air monitoring data. What's that?
Yeah, hi. Hi, yeah, my name is Jose Santiago. Today I'll be presenting a brief update regarding the air monitoring of the Portside. So this is my first time meeting everyone here. I recently joined the Air Pollution Control District as an assistant air pollution chemist, and I will mainly be focused on the Black Carbon program. I am happy to meet everyone here, and I'm happy to collaborate with everyone and the steering committee as well. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we can look at the location of the 5 Portside sites, Caltrans, Boston Avenue, CTV is the new site that we just established. It's marked by the purple circle. So the startup of the site was on July 14, 2022. And we currently have a EC 1060 and a SAS deployed at the site. The site is also near shipyard, the Navy base, light rail, Interstate 5 on and off ramps, residential neighborhoods, and small businesses sprinkled around. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we can see some photos of the new site. It is located right next to a freeway entrance and also residential communities on both sides of the freeway. In the pictures, we can see the proximity of the site to the freeway and one of the field technicians collecting and installing SAS filters. So on the image to the left, that's a picture of a BC 1060, which is the instrument that we are using to monitor the concentration of black carbon in the community. In the SAS instrument that we see the technician working on is what we're using to measure elemental carbon, which is also a marker for diesel PM. Next slide, please. So in this graph, we can see the daily average of black carbon concentration for a 2-month segment of data collected from July 1st to September 13th. The data for CTV, Caltrans Boston, is highlighted by the red line. So from this graph, we can see that the new site at Boston Avenue tracks well with the other Portside sites. And I would like to note that there is a spike of black carbon concentrations in early September from the 1st to the 8th. And this may be due to the recent wildfires that happened recently in the county. So that was something interesting that we saw. But further data analysis of different parameters together with black carbon data will make us make sure with confidence that what really influences the levels of black carbon. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we can look at hourly averages of black carbon in a 24-hour period. So for example, every hour from 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. for the 2 months of data was averaged to calculate the first point on this graph. This view of the data allows us to observe the behavior of black carbon levels throughout the length of a day. So from this graph, we can see that the concentration of black carbon is higher in the morning than in the rest of the day, and that black carbon levels for this 2-month segment of data was observed to be higher at CTP than in the other Portside sites. The elevated levels in the morning may be due to the increasing activity occurring throughout the morning. As people begin their commute to work, diesel trucks begin their routes, and construction resumes throughout the county. The higher concentrations at CTV may be due to a larger presence of diesel trucks and as well as higher density of traffic in the area from the Interstate 5 and Interstate 15. This is where further data analysis and studies such as vehicle counting will help us determine the contribution of diesel truck emissions to black carbon levels. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we can look at a graph that shows us the hourly average of black carbon in a 24-hour period for each day of the week. So for example, for each Sunday, the hour from 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. was averaged to calculate the first point on this graph. And this view of the data allows us to obtain, to observe the behavior of black carbon levels throughout the week. So again, from this graph, we can see that CTB concentrations were found to be higher than those of the other Portside sites. And we can also see that the middle of the week experiences elevated levels of black carbon when compared to the other days of the week, except for the marine terminal, which experiences elevated levels during the weekend as well. Further data analysis encompassing a larger data set will allow us to determine whether these concentrations are representative of Portside conditions throughout the year. Next slide, please. So In conclusion, in this presentation, we only looked at 2 months of data from July 1st to September 13. I do want to mention that the data that we presented here is not QA, so that's something that will be coming later. And so this data is also only representative of summer concentrations of the year 2022. And so further analysis of large data sets will allow us to observe the trends of black carbon levels with greater confidence, and will also allow us to look at how the levels of black carbon change throughout the year. So CTV was successfully deployed with data tracking well with the other Portside sites. So for the next steps, we are looking into collecting meteorological data, such as wind speed and direction. This will help us analyze the spatial and temporal distribution of black carbon concentrations, such as understanding the effects of wildfires on black carbon levels, and like the influence of weather on how black carbon levels behave. And there will also be a further data analysis of black carbon data, which is in progress for Q3 2021 through Q2 of 2022. And also black carbon data will be compared to elemental carbon data to understand the relationship between these two markers as it pertains to diesel PM. And so the elemental carbon data is also in progress, so we should have that soon. Thank you for listening to this short presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Jose.
Who's first? Joy or?
Yes, sorry about that. My view.
Okay.
Yes, Joy followed by Sarah.
Okay.
Hi, Jose. Thank you for that. It's very interesting presentation of the data. Like you say, it's only first 2 months and not QA'd yet, but really interesting. So as I remember that site, I mean, it is very close to the freeway, but in the past, at least, it was also very close to the on-ramp where trucks would be cutting up 29th to use that on-ramp to go to the 5 South. So I'd be interested in hearing from the community if that's still an issue, because that seems like that could also be something that would be spiking those levels. I also just wanted to ask you if you know when the QA would be happening, and when we might be able to see a batch of data that has been through that process. So thank you.
Boston Avenue has a lot of traffic, and I think I was looking it up, and it's a proposed truck prohibition route. So that should definitely help out some of the black carbon concentrations. And as for more QA data, we're still in progress. It should be available within the next few months. And that should be about from Q2 of 2021 to Q2 of 2022, and possibly Q3 as well.
Sarah, followed by Jack.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. That was super interesting. Have you guys considered a corollary monitoring station sort of on the other side of Highway 5 to sort of see if we're seeing more air pollution on one side or the other of the freeway?
Can I ask yeah, thank you.
No, I think, I mean, that would be great if we can do that. At this time, though, we don't have that site kind of earmarked to try to establish a site on the other side.
David, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we can't really hear you.
Oh,
there you go.
That's because I put my mic up on my head. So no, Sarah, that's a very interesting question, and we would love to do something like that. But the right now we currently haven't really scouted out a site on the other side of the freeway, and we don't have plans of doing that just because of the limited resources. But we do have, you know, some other sites that are kind of downwind of the 5 freeway, and so we can try to look at correlations between that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Jose, thank you for that presentation. Really glad to see that site up and collecting measurements. So after you, and I was going to ask you what the QA process was, but I see that somebody answered that in the chat. But once that's done, I was going to suggest that it would be really helpful on those graphs that you present, showing the level of black carbon, for example, at the various sites, to also have a line or a measure in there that shows what is in fact a health concern. Is there an EPA number, a recommended number, or a CARB recommended number that says if the black carbon exceeds this amount, then, and you happen to live across the street from that monitoring station, you should be concerned? Just otherwise, just to see the numbers spiking and how they all perform relative to one another doesn't really, I think, give anybody who might live nearby in the community or near the sampling stations an idea of what this really means. Would it be possible to add that in?
Yeah, hi Jack. This is David again.
Oh, hi David.
No, that's something that we can definitely include. We'll have to do a little bit more research, but as far as I know, there is no health-based standard for black carbon. The problem with that is black carbon is kind of a catch-all term for light, pretty much particulate that is dark. And the health effects of these dark particles depend upon where they're generated from. So diesel PM is much more carcinogenic than, say, wood smoke, black carbon. And so, these techniques in terms of the real-time data, which we get from the instrument called the 1060, isn't able to differentiate that. So what we could do is assume, and everybody hates the word, but we can assume that these measurements are all from, say, the worst carcinogenic source, which is diesel engines, and that would provide kind of the upper limit. And there is a health-based standard from that, and so we could. And we've done that in the past in some of the past presentations, but we forgot to put that in this one.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll make sure that we do that from now on, so that way these numbers make a little bit more sense.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you,
David. Any other questions for the Air District team? And Jack, I think that's your hand from before. Great, seeing none. And yes, we will make sure to send a copy of the presentation to folks after the meeting. Thank you, Jose and David.
thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Moving along, I want to hand it over to Domingo, who will give us our annual SERP progress report.
Thank you very much, Chuy. All right, just give me 1 second here. I'm trying to adjust my computer because I have my camera on one screen and my presentation on another. Hold on 1 second, please. All right. So good afternoon. everybody. Tonight I will be presenting some highlights of the Portside SERP annual progress report. But before I begin, I would really like to acknowledge the work of our partner agencies, which you will hear mentioned throughout this presentation, not just for helping us put this report together, but also for their day-to-day work to implement the actions in the SERP and their dedication and commitment to improving air quality in the Portside community. So thank you for all your partnership and hard work. And I also want to thank all the members of the steering committee for your continued engagement and input and your guidance throughout the implementation of the SERP. Your leadership and your dedication truly makes a difference for the community that you represent. It really helps us as agencies to ensure that all the actions that we're taking are truly serving the community. So thanks everybody for all of your efforts. This is really a team effort. Next slide, please. So just to give a little bit of background, Assembly Bill 617 requires that air districts prepare an annual report for each community emissions reduction plan, or SERP. Annual reports must be made available to the public no later than October 1st of every year after implementation begins. The final Portside SERP, or Phase 2, was approved by CARB on October 14 of 2021, and relevant implementation updates are shared on an ongoing basis with the Portside Community Steering Committee at our monthly meetings. So today's update is a high-level overview of the annual progress report. Next slide, please. So regarding outreach and community engagement, following are some of the accomplishments under this section of the SERP. With input from other agencies and members of the public, as the APCD developed an incident response plan. The final document was approved by the San Diego APCD board on January 19 of 2022. Also, a public participation plan was developed in partnership with CBOs, the Portside Community Steering Committee, and general members of the public. And the final document was approved by San Diego APCD board on April 14 of 2022. Also, CARB has developed a model to quantify and prioritize cancer risk from air pollutants. The Portside CSC provided input and approved objectives for this model. And the model includes a dual approach to look at risk from a regional emissions perspective and also from a community generated emissions perspective. The final model was presented to this group on May 24th of 2022, and CARB is currently developing a summary document and a fact sheet that will be released hopefully later this year. The Office of Environmental Justice was established on November of 2022 with a deputy director and a program coordinator position for outreach. And we're happy to share that an additional program coordinator position has been hired and is expected to join the team in late October. So our Office of Environmental Justice at the district continues to grow. Next slide, please. Regarding incentives, the district has proposed and CARB has approved an electric truck pilot project for Portside to incentivize e-truck purchases. Also, the Cali VIP program, which is a rebate program that covers eligible electric vehicle charger equipment and installation costs, has been implemented in cooperation with SANDAG and CEC. One additional year of funding will be awarded to projects on the backup list starting in 2022. Also, the PAIR program offers free residential air quality monitoring and air filtration systems for eligible Portside residents. As the APCD shares incentive opportunities through social media and via email to a robust distribution list, including contacts with local jurisdictions and agencies and the port. As the APCD also provides informational meetings regarding incentive opportunities and collaborates with other agencies in the region to bring additional funding to improve air quality. Next slide, please. Under our rule development strategies, on October 14 of 2021, APCD amended Rule 1401 to lower the threshold at which facilities must apply and obtain a Title V permit. So Title V permits are required of major sources of pollution. So now those thresholds have been lowered so that these facilities will be required to apply and obtain a permit. On November 4 of 2021, APCD amended Rule 1210, or Toxic Hotspots Rule, to lower the cancer risk reduction threshold from 101 million down to 10 in 1 million. APCD is currently working on evaluating the feasibility of regulating emissions from indirect sources, such as ports and warehouses. And potential concepts were presented to the Portside Community Steering Committee at our August 23rd meeting. Next slide, please. Under enforcement, the district has implemented the expansion of our CARB and APCD mobile source MOU to include commercial harbor craft, and have begun conducting inspections of these air pollution sources. Increased enforcement of these emission sources are expected to improve air quality in the region and benefit the Portside community. The new APCD Air Quality Complaints mobile app is available now in English and Spanish for reporting air quality complaints. And members of the public can also call APCD's complaint line 24/7 at the number that you see on your screen, or at APCD COMP at sdapcd.org. Since the implementation of the SERP, the district has doubled the number of idling inspections in the Portside community by conducting vehicle idling sweeps in the area twice a week. Next slide, please. For heavy duty trucks, the city has uploaded the map of the approved truck route to its website. Additionally, the Port of San Diego conducts extensive outreach and has policies in place to support the use of dedicated truck routes by truck operators. And a dedicated hotline to report issues in English and Spanish has also been maintained. Next slide. Continuing the work for under heavy duty trucks. So to advance the deployment of heavy duty electric trucks, the port has issued an RFI to identify opportunities to deploy public facing infrastructure for both battery, electric, and hydrogen fuel cell zero emission technologies for heavy duty trucks. And we'll hear a little bit more about this in the next agenda item for tonight. In June 2022, the port staff completed the final heavy duty zero emission truck transition plan and presented it to the Board of Port Commissioners, which identified pathways to meet the Maritime Clean Air Strategy zero emission truck goals for 2026 and 2030. The City of San Diego's updated 2022 Climate Action Plan includes measures to increase electric vehicle adoption, such as continuing to work with SANDAG, APCD, the US Navy, the Port of San Diego, and other partners on medium and heavy duty zero emission vehicle infrastructure planning. Considering future policies to advance medium duty and heavy duty zero emission vehicle adoption and utilization in the portside communities, border communities, and other major logistic hubs, and identifying targets for 2030 and 2035 for zero emission vehicle conversion of its municipal fleet of light, medium, and heavy duty vehicles. SANDA kicked off the San Diego Regional Medium and Heavy Duty Zero Emission Vehicle Blueprint project in June of 2022. The blueprint will identify regional medium duty, heavy duty zero emission vehicle and infrastructure goals, develop a public siting criteria, identify near and long-term strategies to accelerate medium and heavy duty zero emission vehicle adoption, and guide SANDAG investments to address challenges with technology readiness, infrastructure availability, and costs. SDG&E is working on projects with the port and port tenants for on and off-road equipment, cargo handling equipment, and heavy-duty goods transport. Next slide, please. Under land use strategies, consistent with recent updated Barrio Logan community plan adoption, the Port District is advancing a comprehensive Port Master Plan update. The Master Plan update contains a first ever environmental justice element, as well as other goals and policies. Examples of policies relate to incompatible land uses and maintaining appropriate separation or buffers to mitigate proximity to air pollution sources, while many others are related to ensuring compatible land use development. The master plan contains goals and policies aimed at greening the urban environment with particular attention to disadvantaged communities. Also, with sponsorship from the California Department of Forestry and in collaboration with Urban Corps, 20 new trees will be planted outside the open field area at Cesar Chavez Park in late 2022. And some of this effort will coincide with the field turf rehabilitation effort of the field, also located at the park. The National City Bayfront project and plan amendments, which are currently in the environmental analysis phase of approval, include a 2.5-acre expansion of Pepper Park. Public outreach on future park design was held in 2022. And another component of the plan amendments will include the permanent alignment of segment 5 of the Bayshore Bikeway in National City. Next slide, please. Continuing some of the accomplishment under land use, SANDAG has drafted a social equity baseline report that analyzes current inequities and will inform the equity action plan, which will steer the agency forward in addressing past planned practices that divided and marginalized communities. The social equity baseline report shows health indicators by race, ethnicity, and by jurisdiction, and contains recommendations for transportation planning and policymaking based on health insights. Caltrans is leading the coordination with SANDAG, the Port of San Diego, the US Navy, and the cities of San Diego and National City on the Harbor Drive Multimodal Corridor Study, for which an environmental review is anticipated to begin this fall. This study is relevant to a number of transportation infrastructure projects that would improve transportation efficiencies and reduce emissions in the Portside community. Next slide, please. So for our working waterfront activities, on January 11, 2022, the Board of Port Commissioners approved the acquisition of 2 all-electric mobile harbor cranes for use at 10th Avenue Marine Terminal. The fully electric cranes would eliminate tailpipe emissions from the port's most polluting piece of equipment, which is the diesel-powered mobile harbor crane. In April of 2022, the Port District partnered with Nikola to hold a ride and drive event that made a battery electric heavy-duty truck available to test drive around the 10th Avenue Marine Terminal. This offered an opportunity for truck drivers to become more familiar with the emerging technology. In April 2022, Dole Produce, Port District tenant at 10th Avenue Marine Terminal, procured 5 new zero-emission yard trucks, which are used at the terminal to move containers. The port is planning to install a second shore power outlet by December 2022 and is preparing a terminal action plan for shore power at its National City Marine Terminal. Navy Bay San Diego ships run on shore power to the fullest extent practical when ported at the base. Any new ships that are added to Navy Bay San Diego will be on shore power while docked, thereby reducing diesel fuel usage and resulting emissions, including PM 2.5 and VOCs. Next slide, please. All 3 shipyards continue to implement policies that require zero emission or EPA certified Tier 4 portable air compressors at their facilities. During the first year of the SERP, 2 shipyards, BAE and NASCO, also began using renewable diesel in their operations. All 3 shipyards are continuing to evaluate opportunities to introduce electric vehicle into their operations. Prior to the implementation of the SERP, both BAE and CMSD had participated in grant-funded demonstration projects to evaluate the suitability of electric vehicles for shipyard operations. And subsequently, BAE was the first shipyard to introduce an electric semi-truck into its day-to-day operations. As of August of 2022, BAE is awaiting delivery of an electric forklift to replace its 24-ton diesel forklift, as well as a new electric semi-truck to replace the electric semi that was part of the grant-funded demonstration project. In late 2021, NASCO organized an on-site electric forklift demonstration of 3 different models to evaluate performance and duty cycle of a multi-shift, outdoor, high-capacity environment. In November of 2021, NASCO and BAE Systems held a demonstration event to allow maintenance and transportation personnel from the different shipyards to share information and lessons learned on electric equipment. Next slide, please. The shipyards conducted a 3 training event on April 12th, the shipyards conducted 3 training events on April 12th, August 10th, and August 24th of 2022 to promote best practices for reducing diesel, VOCs, and other emissions from ship repair activities. In addition to the in-person outreach events, NASCO added a link to the City of San Diego's approved truck route map for Barrio Logan to its website to help ensure that vendors and contractors are aware of the approved routes. Shipyard transportation alternative programs experienced a significant drop in participation in response to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. As necessitated by the circumstances and to support applicable public health guidance related to the commuting and social distancing, shipyards suspended promotion and advertising of the alternatives. Once public health guidance was relaxed to reflect lower cases and employee interest increased, shipyards once again began collaborating with SANDAG to ensure that these employees were aware of the various programs available to them. Actions taken in 2022 included informing employees about available iCommute transportation subsidies for eligible van, pool, and transit users, designating an existing staff member to coordinate and promote commuter programs to employees, inform employees who carpool, van pool, take transit, bike, or walk to work about iCommute's guaranteed ride home program, and conduct an iCommute survey as feasible to determine employee commute preferences and measure driven alone rate changes. Navy Base San Diego continues to support telework schedules for non-essential personnel on the base. The base supports the Transportation Incentive Program and iCommute programs, including participating in Bike to Work Day. The Navy also increased security checkpoints throughout. Excuse me, I'm hearing a lot of echo when I speak. Can everybody still hear me okay?
You sound good now, Domingo.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So the Navy also increased security checkpoints throughput during peak hour traffic by reversing exit lanes to entry lanes in the morning. Sailors who reside at Navy Base San Diego are not authorized to drive their personal vehicles from the dry side onto the wet side during peak commuting hours. A base shuttle service is provided and a pilot commercial e-bike program will be brought on board in 2022. Additional on-base charging stations are being planned and funded for government electric passenger vehicles. Next slide, please. Advocacy work to support emission reduction opportunities is ongoing. The Portside CSC has produced letters of support for grants and other efforts that are in line with the goals and actions in the CERP. Finally, as the APCD continues to advocate at the state level to increase funding to support implementation of the Community Air Protection Program. Next slide, please. So our next steps are to submit the annual report to CARB and post it on our website, making it available to everyone by October 1st. And then also updating our governing board on our October 13 meeting on the Community Air Protection Program implementation to share the progress that we've made so far for our Portside community and a status update for our international border community. And this concludes my presentation. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you for that detailed update, Topigno. Any questions? And maybe we can get started with Roman's question in the chat. Has Cal EVIP provided incentives for charging infrastructure deployment in the Portside communities?
Thank you, Roman. I have to double check with either our colleagues at SANDAG or here internally with our incentives team to see if we have more detailed information about specific projects in the community. So I'm just making a note for myself and I'll follow up.
Great. And we have a question from Larry asking if there's EV charging on base.
Do we have anybody tonight with us from Navy Base San Diego that can assist with answering this question?
Hi, Domingo.
Hi.
So let me just follow up. The question is if there are any charging stations inside Navy bases San Diego, correct?
Correct.
We do have charging stations for the government vehicles that we have provided, but we are not able to share that with the public, with the civilians and the private vehicles online on base that I know of officially, but we might have chargers from other vendors. I would have to check back and get back to you on that.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Domingo on the SERP?
And if you don't have any questions or comments tonight, you can always feel free to reach out to me, send me an email, and I'd be happy to provide any additional information that you may need if you can't come up with, if nothing comes up tonight. Always happy to respond to questions.
Great. I see Roman has his hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Chuy. And thanks, Domingo, for that overview. It's really helpful. I'm just curious, are there, based on the report and the analysis y'all did, is there anything in specific that stood out that needs to be a priority for this next year, especially as we think about like the work that we're doing? Yeah, is there something you identified, that you think we should definitely be focusing in on?
Thank you, Roman. I think that as this committee has set the priorities for truck electrification, I think that continuing the work on looking for zero emission, transitioning to zero emission vehicle opportunities would continue to be a priority. Also, there are some efforts that we will need to continue doing work on to make sure that the goals in the SERP are being met. For example, I mentioned that CARB developed a air toxics model for the community, and part of the next steps for that is bringing that information back to the SERP and MCAS implementation subcommittee to take a look at what at the goals that we have and see if there needs to be any refinements made, or what can we do with that information as far as additional strategies or measures that can support reducing cancer risk in the community. So those are some of the main things that I can highlight right now.
Thanks, Domingo.
Thank you, Roman.
Joy?
Yes, thank you, Domingo. That was a great report, and it sounds like there's a lot of really valuable information in there, a lot of details. So I'll look forward to seeing that online. And I just wanted to say also, I agree with those as the broad priorities for the coming year: continued work on electrification and reduction of cancer risk. So thank you for all the work you've done in implementing the SERP and putting the report together.
Thank you, Joy. And like I said, this has really been a team effort with all of our implementing agencies and partners. There's a lot of work that has gone on throughout this year and that continues to take place. So really wanted to acknowledge that for all of our partner agencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. And Domingo, do you have an estimate on when the progress report will be posted?
Yeah, so our goal is to have it posted by the end of the week, by Friday. So we can send an email out to this group just to alert everybody that the report will be posted.
Great. Thank you. Any other last questions or comments for Domingo? Hola, Montserrat. Sí, parece que el viernes van a poner el documento sobre la red
Así es, Montserrat. El viernes vamos a publicar el documento. De hecho, es un par de documentos. Uno es una tabla de Excel con todas las que tienen listadas todas las medidas, todas las estrategias que están incluidas en el SERP y con información más detallada. Y otro documento es un documento en formato Word que presenta la actualización más bien como en forma narrativa. Entonces es un par de documentos y los dos van a estar disponibles en nuestro sitio web de APCD.
Oh, muchas gracias, Domingo.
Por nada.
Thank you. John, I see your hand is raised. You're on mute, John.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I've been asked by several of our community members, particularly some of the older folks, that what happens if they're dealing with some health issues now? Is there going to be any way for them to, get any kind of compensation or anything like that? And I said, well, I'd be willing to ask, but I don't know. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not sure that there are any plans to provide compensation to folks, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you about compensation. I don't think there was ever a plan to provide compensation.
Well, some of these folks, they're not old enough to be retired, but they don't have any, health insurance, and it's kind of tough.
Right, I understand. And perhaps what we can do is connect you with potential services that might be available for those community members through the Health and Human Services Agency from the county. So I'll look up some information and I'm happy to share that with you offline, John.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, I have a small announcement. I am now the how would I say, the elected appointee of the City of San Diego Barrio Logan Planning Group, and so I'll be working extensively with the group and with families and whatnot throughout Barrio Logan, because my program was selected, the Good Neighbor Project was selected to represent Barrio Logan, the Good Neighbor Project, San Diego. So anyway, everyone have a wonderful day, man. I'm just so proud to be able to say that I think this is all headed in the right direction. I want to thank every last one of you.
Thank you, John, and congratulations on your new appointment.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. I think that concludes this section of the agenda. So moving along to our next presentation. So the Port of San Diego will be sharing information around regional zero emission infrastructure for trucks.
Thanks, Chewy. Good evening, everyone. My name is Maggie Weber, and I'm Principal of Strategic Planning at the Port of San Diego. And I'm here to provide an update about the responses we received regarding a request for information we released earlier this summer regarding regional zero emission infrastructure for heavy duty trucks serving Port of San Diego. And before the presentation started, I noticed a lot of familiar names in the meeting tonight. So I apologize to those of you that have already heard my presentation. This is the final of 5 presentations on the community roadshow. So hopefully it's getting more exciting as they go along. Next slide, please. So the release of the request for information was prompted based on our Maritime Clean Air Strategy, Truck Objective 2A, which asks staff to come back to our board prior to the end of the calendar year to present a concept plan that identifies 4 potential public-facing medium heavy-duty charging locations within the San Diego region to support the deployment of zero-emission trucks. And this effort is in alignment with SERP Action E1, advance the deployment of heavy-duty on-road electric trucks, as Domingo mentioned in the presentation preceding this. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, this is our last stop on the stakeholder and community engagement roadshow for this project. And it's also in line with MCAS Community Objective 1, which asks staff to rely on established processes such as the AB 617 Steering Committee to inform stakeholders and the public about projects that we're working on and receive input in the selection, deployment, and ongoing monitoring of such projects. Next slide, please. So at the Port of San Diego, we like to start with the end in mind. So you can think about the recommendation as I'm going through the slides and the process that we've gone through this summer. But we plan to go to our board and request thumbs up to move forward with our proposed staff recommendation, which has 2 parts. The first part would be to issue a request for proposal, an RFP solicitation, early calendar year, next calendar year, to develop zero-emission truck infrastructure at one of the following sites, either at the northwest or southwest corner of the intersection of 19th Avenue and Tidelands in National City. And the second part is to collaborate with Caltrans to develop sites located in North County at the 15 I-76 interchange and also along the Otay Mesa border crossing. And as there's, like I said, this has been this will be the 5th presentation we've given in our community stakeholder engagement roadshow. And there have been concerns identified that the first site that we're looking to develop on Tidelands is in National City. And there's been concerns brought up that, well, why isn't there one in the city of San Diego? Why isn't there one close to 10th Avenue Marine Terminal? And I just want to reiterate that this is an iterative process. We're not going to build a few sites and that's it. This is going to be ongoing. And this is just the first of many truck charging sites we're going to need to reach our goals of 40% zero emission trucks by 2026 and 100% by 2030. And to be honest, we are limited to developing sites that we own. And the property is more constrained in San Diego, and we really just don't have a site right now that checks all the boxes. But we are continuing to look for additional sites adjacent to 10th Avenue Marine Terminal. Next slide, please. So we issued the request for information this summer. It was open from May 23rd to July 25th. And we basically asked information about these emerging business concepts. As we all know, zero emission trucks, it's an emerging technology. There's few to none currently on the road. And so we don't know what we don't know. So the purpose of the RFI was just to learn who are the players out there interested in developing this technology, what are the proposed business models, financial projections, have people done this before, what does a site look like? We just wanted to know everything. So that was the purpose of the RFI. Next slide, please. And this is a slide that was taken out of our truck transition plan presentation to our board a few months ago. And this identifies basically the network of truck charging sites that we're looking to partner to develop, because as we all know, there are limitations on the range of zero emission trucks right now. The electric trucks can only go about 100 miles before needing to recharge right now. So we're looking to build a network of opportunity charging to aid trucks going farther than 100 miles and outside of the county. So that's, for example, why we're looking to partner with Caltrans to develop truck infrastructure outside of Port Tidelands to support our trucks once they leave Port of San Diego. Next slide, please. So these were the sites and regional locations that were included in the RFI. And if we go to the next slide, it's a closer look. There we go. It's a closer look at the 4 sites owned by Port of San Diego that were included in the RFI right here. Next slide, please. And so we received 18 responses to the RFI from a variety of entities, everything from big international companies where everyone can recognize their logo to small startups funded by venture capitalists. And 2 of the responses we received weren't really responsive, so we didn't analyze those. But so of the 16 responsive responses, we received 8 that were just focused on electric trucks, electric vehicle supply equipment, EVSE, that's what they're calling the electric truck chargers now. And we received 1 proposal that was just focused on hydrogen infrastructure, and then 7 responses that proposed a hybrid approach utilizing both technologies. Next slide, please. We received out of the 16 responsive submittals, there were a range of business models proposed, everything from requesting 3 years to 35-year lease terms, various subsidy requests from the port. Most of them were grant funding reliant, as this is an emerging technology. And there were various service types proposed. New concepts such as charging as a service, hydrogen as a service, trucking as a service, subscription-based systems. And basically what those are turnkey solutions that bundle all the costs together to make it easier for the end user. So for example, a small fleet would pay a service, and there would be a monthly fee, and they would have like unlimited charging or unlimited hydrogen or unlimited use of trucks. And so they would just pay a fee and all of the maintenance would be taken care of. A lot of the proposals included heavy reliance on technology, such as utilizing apps to make reservations, or let's say you're driving along and you know you're going to need to stop for an opportunity charge, you can schedule that in advance. And so the sites are aware that the trucks are coming, and they can organize and plan for that accordingly. So it was really interesting to see the realm of possibility, what's out there with this emerging market. Next slide, please. And so out of the 8 sites, regional locations that were included in our RFI, this shows the number of interested responses we received. And this slide is a bit misleading because as it shows at the bottom, there were 6 responses we received that said they'd be happy to develop all of our sites in regional locations. And so they didn't identify specific plans for those sites. So with that in mind, the sites identified at the top of the list definitely rose to priority for development. And as you see, that is why the sites that we selected, that we're proposing to move forward with to our board in November, rose to the top with based on interest level and the realm of possibility for those sites and business considerations as well. Next slide, please. So this is a closer look at one of the sites we're proposing to include in an RFP. It's a site in National City, just directly south of our general services office. It's approximately 8.2 acres. It's paved and it's currently under short-term lease to one of our tenants. Next slide, please. This next site is directly south of the preceding site. Again, it's under short-term lease to a tenant right now. It's approximately 5 acres, bifurcated with an easement running through it. We're focusing in on the northern parcel, which is just shy of 3 acres, and we're looking, but the southern parcel isn't out of the question either. There just is the issue of the easement running through this property, so they would have to be treated as separate. Next slide, please. So out of the 16 proposals we received, these are the preferred concepts that were identified that as port staff, we are proposing to include in our request for proposal. We like the idea of turnkey infrastructure, and what that basically means is the developer, future leaseholder, they would do everything for infrastructure, everything from design to bid, building, and then maintaining and operating for the life of the project. We're also obviously looking to prioritize port trucking needs, since this will be on tidelands and is primarily to support the trucks coming to and from our marine cargo terminals. But we are a part of the regional solution for increasing medium heavy duty infrastructure in San Diego County. So we want to be a team player and be able to support other emerging uses for the truck infrastructure, just as we hope that others that are developing want to do the same for our trucks. We want the development of the infrastructure to be under a lease term. We're interested in revenue share models. We're looking for the most financially feasible project, business model, demonstrated experience. We don't want to be the guinea pig. We want to see that someone has done a project like this before successfully. And then most importantly, and top of mind really with the heat waves that we've been experiencing recently, is we really want to integrate distributed energy resources to the project. So in the event of an increased load on our power grid, like when it gets really hot and everyone turns on their air conditioners at the same time, we want to be able to be self-sufficient in those occasions. And so we'd love to see microgrids, battery, energy storage, solar, and just general energy management, so we can be as self-sustaining as possible without being too much of a burden on the grid. Next slide, please. So we're back to the end in mind. We started with that and we'll conclude with that as well. We plan to go to our board at our November meeting and make the following staff recommendation to move forward in developing the zero emission truck infrastructure we would like to issue a request for proposal to develop one of the following sites at the intersection of 19th and Tidelands Avenues in National City. And we'd also like to continue our collaboration with Caltrans to develop those regional sites in North County and in Otay Mesa next to the border. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Maggie. Opening it up to steering committee members and members of the public if they have any questions or comments on truck electrification infrastructure at the port. And Maggie, just want to flag there's a comment from Larry in the chat around connecting on Otay border and more information on energy storage.
I see that. Thank you, Chidi.
Joy?
Hi, Maggie. I just wanted to say it's good to see you again. And it's good to see that this is underway. It is part of the SERP, as you know, as well as the MCAS. So it's good to hear the progress that you're making. And thank you for being here tonight and giving us the presentation.
Thanks, Joy. Good to hear your voice too.
Thanks, Joy. We have a comment from Margarita on the chat. She says, hopefully this plan functions and there isn't truck congestion when the trucks go and charge.
Yeah, that's a great point, Margarita. And that's why it's so interesting to see the utilization of technology to hopefully make reservations ahead of time to avoid the congestion that could potentially occur if all the trucks show up at once. So we're hoping that to definitely utilize a reservation service so trucks know when there will be charging available to them.
Según entendí por lo que dijo Maggie, que esa sería la primera lugar, ¿verdad? Donde sería para cargar estos camiones. Y pensando en el futuro en tener otros lugares más aquí en San Diego. Así es como entendí yo, y quería nomás preguntarle si de esa forma lo explicó ella.
Yes, thank you for that question. In order to meet our truck goals of 40% zero emission trucks by 2026 and 100% by 2030, we're going to need a lot of chargers. And this is the site that we're looking to develop now on Port Tidelands. That will be the first of many more to come. And then the two sites as well that we're partnering with Caltrans will also be the first of many more regional sites to come. The fun part about having goals 5 years ahead of the state is that we're out front. We're the first ones developing these sites, but Sandag is just behind us, and myself and some others that may be in the virtual room right now sit on a steering committee for medium heavy duty blueprint for the San Diego region to be developing a network of this regional zero emission infrastructure to serve trucks. So more are definitely on the way. So this will just be, we're thinking of it as like a pilot project to test the waters and see how it goes, and then find more sites that make sense to continue to build the infrastructure.
Thank you, Maggie.
Gracias.
Nick?
Yes, thanks, Maggie. Great presentation. Just out of curiosity, do you know if any of these projects might require coastal zone permits? And I am assuming the port kind of controls that process as being a local coastal program. Maybe is maybe do you foresee any issues with any of these as more and more trucks are going to be visiting the site?
I hope we don't have any issues, but yes, you mentioned it. Although Port Tidelands is within the coastal zone, we do have our port master plan. And so that gives us the authority to issue coastal development permits without the Coastal Commission. This will be a long process. The first step will be to issue a request for proposal, which will be open for a few months, and then we'll review the proposals. And then what typically happens in these processes, so don't quote me on this, but what we're expecting to happen is we find a proposal we like, we enter into an exclusive negotiating agreement, and at that point, that's when we say, okay, we would like to work with this entity, assuming everything pans out, and that's when the entitlement process would begin, which would include doing CEQA and getting a coastal development permit and other permits that may be applicable through the city. And so once that process is completed, then actual construction would take place, but this would be treated as like any other development project that we would do at the port.
Okay, thank you. I know anything in the coastal zone takes a little bit longer, so just
Yep,
curious.
sure does.
Thank you, Nick and Maggie. We are running a little short on time, so I'm going to move ahead to the next agenda item. But if folks have any questions on this presentation, please feel free to reach out. Maggie, are you the point person for the port on this?
I am. I'm the project manager, and I can put my email address in the chat right now. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out.
Great.
Thank you
so
for the
much.
time.
Thank you. Great. Moving along to public comments and announcements. I know we have a couple in the queue who reached out over email. To get started, is Daniela still here? I'm not seeing her in the chat, but maybe Commissioner Naranjo, can you provide Daniela's announcement?
Yeah, Chewy, I'm happy to. So Daniela is with the Sherman Heights Community Center, and they are organizing an event they do every year, which is for Dia de los Muertos. So it's a tradition, Mexican tradition, honoring those who have passed away. And so it's a great event, and I will provide more information on the date, but Sherman Heights, is part of the AB 617. And so want to make sure that everyone knows about this event and come enjoy and network with other folks in the community. So I will put the details of the date and the time of the event. So hopefully, I don't know if she can hear, or I don't know, Chewy, I think you may have to enable because she's probably a participant. Probably didn't register to speak, but anyways, I'll provide the information in the chat, and then I can send it to you, Chewy, the flyer, so you could email it to the rest of the steering committee members.
Thank you, Commissioner Naranjo. Yes, and yeah, it looks like Daniela might have dropped out of the meeting already, but thank you for that. Now I wanted to hand it over to Larry Emerson from San Diego Sequel.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm working with San Diego Sequel, which is for sustainable, equitable, quiet electric equipment and landscaping. And we came to your port meeting many months ago with another fellow named Ron. And we've made progress, and the CARB has also made progress. They have, again, this is for transitioning from the gas powered lawn equipment to electric. And some of those gas powered are 2-cycle. They mix oil and gas, very polluting. And they do this, that work in our neighborhoods. And it's bad for the workers as well as for the people who live in the surrounding areas. Anyway, there's $30 million has been set aside. More were probably on the way in the future. But the $30 million is first come, first serve, the way they've organized it. And San Diego, we need to do outreach. This is going to start November 7th. And this is just a heads up. And we want to do more outreach to people. And we maybe ask the members of the Portside committee to help us do that outreach. We're going to be having a meeting with the San Diego CEQA group this Wednesday. I put a note in the chat with my email. If anybody's interested to join us for that meeting, Wednesday at 3:00, a Zoom meeting. And we want to get the word out to the small landscapers that have a business license. This is focused on them. And we want San Diego to take the maximum advantage of the funding that's available. Again, we don't want it to go all other parts of California. We want San Diego to get their fair share. So we have to get the word out. Right now, manufacturers and vendors that are going to be doing the voucher paperwork are applying to get on the CARB website. And again, November 7th is the starting date where these landscape businesses can go and apply 70% off on the equipment, on the batteries, and the chargers. It's a really good deal. And we have more information coming, but that's just a heads up. And we should be able to have more information during this next month. And probably at your next meeting, we'll have more concrete details. And any questions, please look for my email in the chat and send me a question, or if you have any questions now.
Thank you so much, Larry. And I just reposted your chat into the group. So if folks are interested in meeting up with SD Sequel and helping plan for the outreach for this really important program, please reach out to Larry with information on the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Moving along, Dinah.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to announce that SDG&E will be hosting its EV Day this weekend, Saturday, October 1st at Liberty Station at the Ingram Plaza. We have a ride and drive. We have some booths for information. The port will be there. I believe San Diego Electric Vehicle Association will also be there, featuring their EV, their Lightning. The port will be featuring their the F-150 Lightning. The EV group will be showing off their cars, and we also have some activities for the children. So please join us. It's from 10 to 3, again, Saturday, October 1st, Liberty Station, Ingram Plaza. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any other public comments or announcements? Nick?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I just wanted to flag next Wednesday, October 5th, EHC is going to be hosting a booth at the Barrio Senior Villas in Barrio Logan. We're going to be doing a air monitor and air purifier distribution for folks that are eligible for these items. We're also going to be providing folks with Pronto cards so that they can use public transportation here in San Diego. So yeah, just wanted to invite everyone out. I'll be posting a link to the event, the details and address of the Barrio Senior Villas over in Barrio Logan on the chat.
Great. Thank you so much, Nick. And with a minute to spare, I do want to hand it over to Sandy. Is your hand still raised?
Oh yeah, I just have a quick one. I'll be quick. I'll do 30 seconds. So I just want to share as just as an individual that's actively involved in clean air initiatives about Proposition 30. So Proposition 30 as just for educational purposes, it is a proposition that's going to come out on this November ballot, and it would propose a 1.75% tax increase on wealth made by those who make $2 million or more a year. And the tax will help restore clean air by including rebates to purchase EVs, 50% of that dedicated to low income and disadvantaged communities. It would provide subsidies to help make zero emission medium and heavy duty electric trucks more affordable. It would also increase expansion of EV charging infrastructure and would fund wildfire mitigation and prevention efforts. And so for perspective, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that the Inflation Reduction Act would provide $14 billion for ZEV incentives for the entire country over 10 years, while Prop 30 will provide 80 to $100 billion for California in over 20 years. So this is an opportunity where we could actually vote on having a funding mechanism for this transition that complements a lot of the SERP strategies. And so if anyone's interested to learn more, you can definitely message me and I'm happy to talk more about Prop 30.
Thank you, Commissioner Naranjo. And then moving along to our closing remarks.
Thank you, Tree. I just wanted to again thank everybody for being with us tonight and for all your work and dedication towards the implementation of our SERP strategies. We'll continue to work together and bring you information about all the progress that we make, and keep an eye out for the report on Friday. I'll share the information with Chuy so that he can send a message to everybody alerting you when the report is posted on our website. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Thank you, everybody. And the next meeting will be the 25th of October.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Buenas noches.
Good night.
Buenas noches.